All right, welcome to our guild interview today. Today is April 29th, 2006. Today we are interviewing the Evil Empire, EE, over on Sonoma, and I'm really looking forward to this one. I've watched these guys for a very long time, and I think we're going to have a really great interview today. What I'd like to do is to start out by just giving some personal introductions. So what I'll do is I'll go down the line and have everybody here introduce themselves, talk about your character, what your character is, how you came to Sonoma, or how you came to UO, as a matter of fact, and your character's name. So let me go ahead and first start out with my co-host, Viceroy here. Viceroy, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, it's great being here and everything, and I actually found it pretty amazing that, we're interviewing this guild here today. Just found out, before the show and everything that, these guys kind of hail from my part of Texas and everything. So, it's kind of cool that, to know that somebody out there, in your same neck of the woods is playing Ultima Online too. So, I'm very excited about that, and I think it's pretty cool.
I agree. I'm starting to believe that Texas is taking over UO, as a matter of fact, because when I look at the old Frapper maps, I'm seeing so many people over in Texas, and here I'm sitting by myself, other than with our old DJ Hooner. I'm the only one in Arizona playing UO. Real quick, go ahead, Viceroy, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I think that the reason for that is because, the game did start out in Texas, and that Texas is where it's at.
Good point. It is a good point. And it started out in Austin, and where OSI is at. And the game started its roots there. Definitely got a local following, that's for sure. Aya of EE, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your character, anything else you'd like to talk about.
All right. Well, I first came over from Napa with the war group. Some of you may remember War on Sonoma. I then joined EE after they moved on and became a member of Human and Sapphire's guild. Been there with them ever since. Some of you may know me as the Stratix reporter, Aya, so that's where the name comes from.
Yes, and being somebody who reads the Sonoma Stratix forum, great reports. I'm always impressed. It takes me back to the day of going and reporting as a ghost, or in her case, she gets to do much of her stuff much more colorful, since she seems to stay alive a lot longer than I did when I was a Stratus reporter. Human, the GM of E, I want to go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, sir. Well, my main character that I play nowadays is Human. Have been using this character ever since I got the skills high enough, and seem to enjoy playing my mage. Mages are the funnest to play for me. I started out actually on a Dexter. A lot of people may know me as D'Artagnan, which is the guild master of a former guild that I once ran here on Sonoma called MKM, the Mystical Knights of Malice. That was a fun guild. And then my assistant GM of that guild, because of real life issues, we had to disband MKM. He ICQ'd me one day and told me he was playing for a guild named EFL. And that's where my PvP roots was from EFL. But needless to say, all good things come to an end, and EFL just wasn't doing the FEL thing much at all. And I chose to leave out and start E&E, which has been about 8 months ago, and have enjoyed it ever since.
Yeah, I've noticed you guys enjoying yourselves a lot over on the Sonoma Shard. And I remember MKM as well. Very big into the player run events arena. Yeah, you guys have had quite a history. Let me go ahead and let Sapphire introduce herself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hello, everybody. I am Human's wife in real life, actually. He was playing the game about 6 months before I ever got involved. And once I got involved, I was like, move over, where's my account? Sorry, baby.
That seems to work a lot during the, with the couples that I've known in game. As soon as the husband joins, or the wife for that matter, and the other starts realizing how much fun they're having, they do tend to push each other over and go, okay, it's either time to get your own account, your own computer, or damn it, your own room. One or the other. I've seen that a lot in UO over the years.
Yeah,
well,
that's the way it started. I made a name on his account, and then after I played on that for a while, I needed, we had joined a guild, and they wouldn't let me join because we were on the same account. So I had to get my own account, and then we worked into 2 computers.
It works out that way, and and EA is banking on it, I'm sure. Let me take a look at my little itinerary here. We got the introductions out of the way. Who-Man, I'd like you to, as a GM, to go ahead and give us a little history of your guild, how it was started, you know, what shard you guys all originated from, and how you came to Sonoma. I know you kind of touched on it in your introduction, but now you're up to 116 players. Have these all been players that have just came over to Sonoma and you brought in, or did you bring them over from other shards? Go ahead and just kind of give us a history of how your guild developed to be as big as it is today.
No problem at all. Well, to be totally honest, like I said, we had split from EFL, and E&E actually started with a total of 3 members, which was myself, my wife, and my assistant GM, who unfortunately couldn't make it to be on today, Sean. His character is Machine Gun Mimi. And we split. We did a lot of champs and failed to gain the funds. Over time, with you know, being out on our own doing 3-man champs, you run into people, you have to fight. We gained a couple members here and there, but the backbone of the guild was those 3 people in the beginning, and it was that way for about a month. And like I said, we just picked up a couple members here and there. Some have moved on, unfortunately, but that's the way the game goes, you know. A lot of the members we have are Sonoma members that have been here. There are some that have come over from other shards. One of my leaders in the guild, Oogly and Naomi, both have come over. I believe they were on Origin. And then Aya here, I believe, was on Napa Valley before Sonoma and joined up with us here. She was here with the Guild War while they were here for a short stay. And then when War left, she decided she was going to stick around, and she joined up with us. Everybody else has been pretty much just, you know, they see us out there on a daily basis fighting and having a good time, win or lose. And, you know, we've got no drama in this guild. If we do start to get drama, they're gone out of it really fast. We try to keep it as a family, a friendship environment in our team speak and in our guild. And that's the way it should be for any guild that's running. If you want to be successful and do the things you want to do, that's the way you need to run it. But, yeah, we've got a lot of members. All actuality, we've probably got about 45 actual different members in our guild, and run about 20 on a night, and that's on a good night. Weekends are good nights usually for us. We are definitely an evening guild. That's when we have most of our members on, is in the evening, so we tend to do a lot of stuff during that time of day.
20 members at night is still quite a force. I mean, that is impressive. Playing on a low population shard, which I do 50% of the time, which is Siege Perilous, of course. Watching a 20-member guild come screaming onto the screen is, it caused me to jump into a Divine Journey real quick. Of course you can't do that there, but on a production shard, yeah, I would do that. On Sonoma, being that you guys play that, so with 20 members on, okay, I want to know what your guys' role is in on Sonoma. The PAS and the guilds that are like 3F and all the others, they all have their roles that they try to stick to. Some members don't, but in generality, the guilds try to stick to a certain role or an accomplishment or what their goal is on Sonoma. What is E's goal on Sonoma? What do you guys want to accomplish? Not to win UO. I would hope, being the great guild you guys are, that's not your accomplishment, especially since the fact that you guys haven't allied. But what is your goal? And any of you can answer this. Just make sure to go ahead and hit your channel commander there. Let me know who's first. Go ahead, Uman.
I think the biggest goal for us right now, and has been for a long time, is just to be a group of friends, to go out and if we go into a raid, to raid another guild doing a spawn, is just to do the best that we can, win or lose, the best thing for us is to learn from our losses and just to have the pride come out of our wins, because we're not always going to win them all, and that's apparent, but just to have a good time doing it. I mean, we are a fell-based guild, so our main priority is to, if we catch another guild doing a spawn, we're going to raid them and hopefully come out with the win on top of it. And if not, we learn from it and we readjust and we try to get better at it. But more so, we're a fell-based guild. We do other things outside of fell, but first and foremost, we're fell-based. We're a champion and a raiding guild.
Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, and you know what? There's nothing I respect more than a fell-based guild. You don't see a whole lot of them these days. You see a lot of them that proclaim that, but you also see a lot of those same guilds hanging out in Luna Bank on their blues at the same time. So definitely a lot of respect there. Viceroy, go ahead. You had a question.
Yes, I actually got a question. You say you're a fell-based guild and everything, and that you raid pretty much champ spawns, I would imagine, and stuff like that. Who would you say is probably your biggest threat over on Sonoma? Because I noticed you guys were like the second largest guild over in Sonoma. So, I mean, my question to you is, or you guys, what would y'all perceive as y'all's most biggest threat over on Sonoma? And, and are y'all hoping to maybe like be the EFL of Sonoma, so to speak? So go ahead. I think it's Aya or Aya.
Correct. Either way, I go by Aya. I would say that anybody who doesn't wear an E tag is a threat. If we're out doing a champ and we are scouted, we know we're going to get raided. End of story. And shoot, all the other alliances just, oh my, numbers are huge. So if we know we're going to get raided, we know we're going to get raided. Anybody who doesn't have an E tag is a threat.
That's a good strategy to go by. Having just learned how to do champ spawns recently, like within the last month myself, I know for a fact that, and having 120 spirit speak and seeing the numerous ghost cams around, I know exactly where you're coming from, that Aya. It is basically anybody that comes on the screen that's not familiar, you basically gotta just assume they're there to kill you and ruin your spawn. Go ahead, Human.
Yeah, I was just going to add on a little bit to what I had to say. And right now, I think, Viceroy, you were asking about who is our biggest competition out there. You know, we're sort of sandwiched in between two big alliances on Sonoma, one being the COP Alliance, which is COP, KQ, FEL, GORE, and SSM, and then the other one being 3F, ISO, WACA, RIS, DL, EFL. So we're the only, well, I won't say the only, we're one of the only unallied guilds in FEL on Sonoma, and pretty much I can say we're the most active unallied FEL guild. So anytime we see any of those at a champ or whatnot, whether we are doing the champ or whether we're scouting them, but overall I think that the 3F Alliance is going to be our biggest competitor. They're good. They've got good teamwork, and they've got a lot of members. A lot of times they outnumber us at least 2 to 3 to 1 person. So that's our biggest competitor out there right now.
That's pretty impressive that you guys hold up the way you do, though. If you're able to survive with those against those numbers, and pull one off every once in a while and get scrolls out of there, that's still very, very, very impressive. Especially for an unallied guild, because a lot of I've noticed myself on Sonoma, most guilds are allied. You know, with the individual ones, of course. A lot of people who have a very few numbers don't even bother because it's not worth the time. Because your guild's going to join a war or whatever, and they don't even bother with that. Viceroy, go ahead.
I'll go ahead and let Aya go first. She probably has something more.
Go ahead, Aya.
Something that I really like about Sonoma is that you don't have a guild or a group of shields trying to take over the shard or run the shard. So yeah, there are ghost cams out there, but they're not monitored 24/7. You don't have people scouting 24/7. So that's what I really enjoy about Sonoma. The PvP is more about fun. The raiding is more about fun, and not about, hey, we own this shard.
Self-admittedly, I'll admit, you know, having have characters on Sonoma, I have noticed that when I get PK'd, because I'm basically solo when I go over to Feluca. Because not many of my own guilds over there travel over. I've noticed that when I am killed, whatever, you know, on Sonoma, and it is maybe on other shards, I don't know. The larger shards, who knows, but on Sonoma it's got a smaller population, not as small as Siege Perilous, but small as Sonoma is. They're pretty much ready to give you a res and that sort of thing. And so you're right there. Go ahead, Viceroy. You had an original question.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious because, I mean, you guys are a PvP guild and pretty much the largest one that I can see because you all rank number 2 over on Sonoma in terms of largest guilds and everything. I think People's Army of Sonoma is the top leading ranking guild over on Sonoma as of right now. So I'm kind of curious as of, you know, what would you say makes your guild a very effective fighting guild? Is it pretty much the artifacts in which you guys wear, or is it tactics? You know, do you guys use TeamSpeak to coordinate your, you know, your attacks and stuff like that? What would you say is the biggest, most helpful strategy in which you guys employ? You know, that makes you guys such a great bunch of fighters. Human?
Well, to be totally honest, we use all of those. We use AutoMap. We do use TeamSpeak. Being able to talk while you're in the middle of a fight is, as you can hear my wife in the background, she's talking to my assistant GM on the phone now. But AutoMap is a big help. You're always able to see, you know, where you need to rally at. And if you can give me just 1 second here. Bunny, why don't you go ahead on this?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. fighting smartly. That's what I like best about E. When they're on the money, they're fighting smart. If we are taking on a group that has too many numbers, we set up traps. For a while there, we were in the star room quite a bit because we could hold that. We could set up energy fields and have nice little surprises waiting for the people who were going to pop through, who may have taken our spawn, so a way to get back some of the scrolls, or, nice little retribution. Or heck, maybe that was just our form of raiding. Set up something in the star room. We've done that at choke points. We've done that at the entry to fire, different places. Learning where to fight, how to fight, when to use fields, when not to, all that stuff. That comes from experience, and E has some leaders that are very experienced PvP-wise, so they know where to pick the battles and how to fight.
Yes, those are excellent points. I've always been, what's the word I'm looking for? Not amazed, but enthralled with some of the tactics that people use in order to successfully take a spawn. And in my experience so far, as a novice spawner, I've noticed that a lot of them have not been the originating guilds, the ones who started them out from the first candle. It's always the ones who come in with the strategies to, they're going on number 14 or whatever. Get them. Ghost cams are one thing. My alliance, at least, will never do that. But I've always been amazed that these people come in with these great strategies, because we can go to a spawn with my alliance or my guild and walk away going, man, nobody was awake tonight, and all of a sudden, that's it. We're all dead, and all the scrolls are gone because of a well-planned trap. That is awesome thinking. Awesome thinking. Viceroy, go ahead.
I'm kind of curious because, y'all mentioned ghost cams several times in this interview and everything. So my question to you is this: how bad of a problem would you say ghost cams are, and does it really bother you guys to a great degree, or what? And how do you think EA could better address this whole ghost cam issue? In your opinion, as PvPers and everything on Sonoma, how do you think they could probably improve on the solutions available in dealing with ghost cams? How do you think they could improve on that? Go ahead, Human.
Well, on the ghost cam issue, as you know, having Spirit Speak and at least GM Necro, you could exercise somebody from the spawn that you were at and boot them out so they wouldn't be able to keep track of how that is going. But unfortunately, EA didn't keep up the par on the issues. See, you can ghost the spawn as much as you want because exercise doesn't do any good anymore. All the ghost has to do is stay at least 12 tiles away from the champ altar, and as long as they're more than 12 tiles away from the altar, you can't boot them out anyway. So the exercise isn't worth it to even have as a skill to use for that reason. And then as far as ghosts go, a lot of times on Sonoma, you won't really find people ghosting the spawns. A lot of the guilds here on at least the Fellwise guilds will actually set up stealthers, and they will actually go in and stealth the spawn.
All right, I got a question to follow up on that. You say with the 12 tiles, what do you think they could, EA, let's just say they're tuned in right now listening to this interview, or should they, later on download it and listen to it. What would you say to EA, on how to better improve that? I mean, what would you tell them that needs to be done with regards to exorcism, to better improve it? I mean, because I mean you guys are PvPers, and I'm sure I'd like to hear a little from you guys as to what you think would best solve this kind of problem. It may not be as rampant over on Sonoma, but it does happen, I would imagine, from time to time. So what would you tell EA if you could? So starting with Human, and then we'll go Aya.
Honestly, I think that if they would just make it to where you could use the exercise on them, period, if they were in the spawn area where there is active spawn, then I think that that would fix the problems altogether. Pretty much, I think that that's all they need to do.
All right.
And
go ahead.
I was just going to say that that was it.
All right. And Aya, let's hear from you.
Pretty much the same thing. Any location you can get a scroll, I think that a ghost should be exorcised from. If you can get a scroll in that area, then a ghost should be able to exercise.
Excellent. And hopefully, EA will listen in to this interview or download it later, and hopefully take whatever feedback you guys had for them and take it into great consideration. So thank you. Spiderbite, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree 100% with the spawn stuff. In my opinion, the ghost cams are, I don't know. I mean, it depends on which shard you're on. In Sonoma, like the others here from E have alluded to, it's not really a big deal. They don't monitor them 24/7, but on other shards, I guarantee, and I've witnessed it, they monitor them 24/7. They have people who log in they take turns every 15 minutes to monitor them. And it is a big deal because you walk into a spawn, you can guarantee, you can set your watch by it. As soon as you hit that second to last candle, a guild will just pound through, and it will always be a member of a guild who the ghost cam belongs to. And to me, you know what? In a way, it's a fair advantage, but at the same time, it's, you know what? They're coming in with fresh troops, and they haven't put the work into it. It just doesn't seem fair to me. So, you know what? Ghost cams are ghost cams. We see them, those of us with Spirit Speak, run in and go, oh, geez, look at all these people stand. We have spectators is what we call them. So it really is interesting to see what EA will do about that. Exorcism was obviously not the right choice because it doesn't work and it doesn't do the trick. Bottom line is, I mean, the only other way they could go is if you die, you're kicked out of the dungeon. And that's not going to happen either because then people have to go, well, I don't know, maybe that is the way to go. That's my opinion, though, as far as guilds go. Let's see what the next topic is. Hey, you know what? Okay, let's talk about this. This is a hot topic over on Stratix and UO. The I Knew the Crone events. Is the Empire of Evil participating in any of that? Have you guys gone to the last two ones, the last two spawns that have been created? And how'd you guys fare over there? Go ahead, Aya. Or Aya, I'm sorry.
Queen Mom gathered up a group on Sonoma for the Rat General? And we took that guy down fast. It was very impressive how the Shard got together and took the character down. As a guild, we haven't been too involved in the events. Like I say, Human says, we are a PvP guild. And the lure of events would be more for, I hate to say it, but more for the items, although we have attended some just for the fun of it. I'm hoping EA will get some events that will attract PvPers with more storyline than for items. It'd be fun to have a evil character created in the Fel area that those in Fel could rally against or rally for and be a part of some sort of event using a character for us, if that makes any sense.
It makes absolute sense. Masera helped us with one, it wasn't last year but the year before, where that actually occurred on 2 occasions, where there was an evil character involved, and it did draw people over on 2 different events over to the Fel side. Unfortunately, we had a bunch of people from the Trammel side say, oh, we're sorry, we couldn't attend because we didn't want to get PK'd. Because there were PKers there, killing people trying to get into the events. The Jalome Pits is one example of that, which I was at and present at, and had no problem on Sonoma. Because you could get a resurrection right away once you got back into the building. So that's a great question. Let me pose this towards your guild. Would you like to see more EM events, such as this is leading up to, whether they are EM events or these canned events that we're getting from EA? And I use the word canned events as a generic term that I'm referring to them as, because that's what I think. Would you like to see more of them on Feluca then? Drawing the Trammel players over. Go ahead, Daya.
Speaking as a PvPer, of course. But I would like to see the Uber Elite items taken off, these event of items taken off completely, utterly. Maybe a robe or a sash, that's nice to have. But, you know, the items that enhance dexterity or a weapon that does double damage, you know what I'm talking about. Those items don't need to be there. I mean, let's enjoy the scenarios for the scenario's sake and not for a token. Yes, I would love to get more people into Fel, because Fel is a community, and it has a lot of assets that people don't realize, especially, well, I shouldn't say especially, but EA is not taking advantage of with their events. We have a community that's very tight. We know each other. And that could be taken advantage of, and a storyline could be very much enhanced by taking advantage of Felucia and its residents.
I agree 100%. I've always been a huge advocator of bringing the events and the EM arcs and now these canned events. You know, they don't have to happen in West Britain, in Trammel. That does not need to be the gate to go there, because then you're excluding all the reds over on Feluca. And as everybody knows, not every red is bad, not every blue is good, blah, blah, blah. It stinks that they focus that way. And I've always been a huge advocate of saying, split these events up. If the Trammel players want to come play, I have no problem with jumping through a gate and going over there. Go play. Everybody worries about griefing, and we have 1,000 arguments that will say otherwise, I'm sure. And as a matter of fact, hey, speaking of which, Viceroy, go ahead. No, I'm just kidding.
No, go ahead, Human.
I was just going to tap into that last little part of what you just said, Spider, and also Viceroy, about the griefing. You know, I mean, as much as I hate to say this, I would love it if more guilds would take some honor into themselves, and especially here on Sonoma, you know. There's always going to be those griefers out there when it's something to do and fail, just to hound everybody. You know, a lot of people will say, well, you know, we can go out there because there's trammies coming and we can kill them left and right. You know, give give people a chance, man, because you're never going to get more people into the fell population unless you, give them a chance to have a good time there. If somebody's first experience coming to fell is popping through a gate and being killed as soon as they're through and being able to do anything, they're not going to want to come back. You got to give some people some leeway and some room to have fun. So I mean, maybe that's just myself posing a question to the rest of the guilds here on Sonoma, the fell population. Hey, don't come just to grief it. I think we had the horse races not too long ago here where Door tried to set something up and have a thing, and they just come to grief it and they kill people, and they're not there for the event. They're just there to kill. There's plenty of time to kill people on fell. Go out and find a spawn to raid. Where killing is what needs to be done. But when it comes to the events and stuff, whatnot, come on, people. Let's have a good time and make it well-rounded for everybody, not just, come there to grief them. And that's what I wanted to say on that.
I agree, 100%. You brought up Doors to horse races, and yeah, that was pretty pathetic. I was there for that, and remember, we never even went over the starting line, I don't think, for the horse races, because basically everybody would lay everybody out, and that was the end of the event. Door wound up having to shut it down and say, sorry, we're going to try another day. And it wasn't a lot of fun. And it kind of sucked. Well, no, it just sucked. But at the same time, their argument was, hey, it's fell. Welcome to fell. We're introducing you to, the way the world is. And that's not the way it is on Felucca. And you're right. You shouldn't introduce somebody by griefing them immediately through a moon gate. Kill them? Fine. Res them. Explain to them how they can better avoid a situation. And then send them on their way to go explore the world with risk. It'll make it a lot better for them. So, that's a go ahead, Viceroy.
Yeah, that's a very good point that you guys bring up and everything about, being able to go into, Felucca with some of these events. And quite frankly, just looking at how, the mentality, a lot of players like myself is kind of resentful of the fact that travel even exists. So, I mean, you're always going to have somebody out there who are kind of like me, resentful of the fact that, people are playing over in a safe world, and at the same time, looking for the easy way out. So, I mean, there's a different mentality about Feluccan players for the most part. Some more mature about it, and some not. And I think you're going to encounter the more immature players about it because, I mean, let's face it. Personally, I don't think any event would ever work out, especially if it was an EM event, would work out in Felucca, to be honest, because you're always going to have one party pooper in every bunch. And so, let's just say for someone like me, if I was resentful about travel, which I am, to a degree, then, I don't want to see people who, like everything easy in life, coming over into a facet where everything's supposed to be difficult, There's a clash of different beliefs and ideology, and I don't think that's, putting those two together, the far right and the far left together, supposedly. Because, I mean, if you really think about it, so it's, in a lot of play styles, it's kind of like a political system. You don't put the two together, otherwise you're going to have arguments and fights and everything else. So, I assume to keep the two separated, and, for that very reason. And yes, I feel that, things shouldn't be so item-based. But, that goes to my next question here for you guys. How you guys feel about the upcoming proficiency changes? Because I'm sure that's going to affect you guys, and I'm sure that's been going over in y'all's mind as to whether or not you're going to embrace it or whatever in the future. I know you guys haven't really gotten to play with it so much. Are you guys looking forward to playing with it? You guys are kind of skeptical of it, or would you guys much rather see a a day and age where we go back to a pre-AOS type, item system where, there's no item properties and everything. Would that make y'all's lives easier, or do you like how things are now with the item properties, or what? So let me hear from some of you guys. Go ahead, Human.
I'm pretty sure you'll have more people here wanting to answer this also. But, in all honesty, if they're going to bring in something like the 41 pub, I would much rather see it just go totally back to the way it was before AOS came out, and just go to, just wearing your armor with no attributes whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think that the way they're doing it now is, I think they're going to actually end up losing more players out of this publish than what they even ever stand to gain. And that's just my honest opinion out of that. I've heard so many people just totally not even want anything to do with Pub 41, whether it be from my guild or any of the other guilds out there. They're just totally against it. And as you can see, I don't know if you're on Stratix much, but a lot of the people have actually gotten the banners underneath their signatures stating that down with Pub 41. The fel population, I think, is a big issue there. There's a lot of us on fel right now that with item-based properties, we've learned to I've went out and I've built myself a suit that is probably a $50-60 million suit for my main character. And when this comes in, that suit's going to be totally useless. I won't be able to use it at all. So a lot of people are going to come back with that same outcome there, and they're going to be against it. But yeah, if we're gonna go into, do something like that, why not just take it back to the way it was in the beginning and just go, GM made armor. I'm good for that if that's the way it's got to be. But don't bring in a proficiency system where, if you've got a suit and you can make it, 100 LRC, 40 LMC, with so much mana regen, and not be able to use it because you don't have the proficiency slots. To me that just sounds crazy.
Yeah, I'm totally with you right there and everything, because I feel like, the further we go with this whole proficiency system, or the further we go with item properties and everything, I just see more and more problems just get tangled up in the web and everything. And I think we're making the game too complex for the average player. I think it's becoming a lot more about math. If you're kind of like a person like me who's not good at math, then that's not something you really want to play. And then you're throwing in properties on top of that. Not only are you dealing with math, but properties on, proficiencies. It just becomes too difficult and too complex for the average player. On top of that, any new players who are even thinking about coming into the game. I think and kind of touching on what you said earlier, if they're going to go do anything, go back to the pre-AOS system, because I think, really, honestly, that would lure a lot of more players back into Felucca than what we currently have, because, a lot of people came and get into the PvP aspect of the game because, hey, like you said, it costs 60 million gold just to get a good high-end suit, to be able to have a good level playing field with any other players out in the field. So, for somebody on an average player is not going to be able to experience PvP or any of the other aspects of Felucca because, hey, you got to have 60 million at least to start out with. So let's go ahead and hear from Aya, and then we'll go turn it back over to Spiderbite. Go ahead, Aya.
Well, I'm going to disagree and agree. First off, proficiency, no way. I don't like that system at all. But I don't agree that we should go pre-AOS. I know many of you have grown over that statement, but look at it this way. The one and only draw that we have is Power Scrolls for Felucca. Without Power Scrolls, we won't have any reason other than double resources to get people to come to Fel. With Power Scrolls, you got a reason for people to come to Fel. You've got a reason to fight over something. It'll keep PvP alive. That being said, I'd like to see EA up item properties in Phil to draw more people in. Leave the system the way it is, fix the bugs, maybe toss in an incentive like upping item properties to get more people into Phil, to give them more reason to do champ spawns, to farm in Phil, to make Phil a place where more PvP can occur.
Well, you have a point, I guess. And offhand, I guess that would sound like a good idea, but I think what we're missing here in terms of upping up items and everything and offering higher end items is that, where do we set the ceiling? I mean, we keep offering higher end weapons, and then a year from now we get complacent or get bored and complacent with the weapons we got now, and then a year from there we'll be wanting better and more powerful weapons. So where do we set the ceiling on item properties? And if we set them up too high, you're going to be inflicting more damage, so you're going to have to give players more health and stuff so they can not die in one hit. And then same thing with monsters. You're just going to be able to cut through them like butter. So I really think the longer we keep on the trend of item properties, we're just going to see more and more complications as the game progresses. And I think that's why I want to see pre-AOS as opposed to, higher-end weapons. And I'm going to turn this over to Human real quick, and then Aya, if you still have an opinion on that, we'll come back to you on that. And, that way you can think on that a little bit as to what you're going to say in rebuttal. And Human, go ahead.
I'm with Aya on certain things. In all honesty, I think that right now, the way the game is right now, for a lot of people, you could come over to Fel and you could do champs if you were with a group of people, I mean, Pass comes over and does champs. They may not complete very many because they get raided a lot. But, I mean, anybody, as long as you've got a good group of people and they know what they're doing, they can come over and they can give Fel a try. And I mean, it doesn't even have to be, a champ. I mean, you can go to Brick Gate and fight there. Or, I mean, hey, let's go to Buck's Den every now and then and give it a try. We've done that a few times ourselves, and it's been fun. We've had a couple of fights with the 3F Alliance over at Buck's Den. But A is right. As far as, I totally forgot about, pre-AOS, the Power Scrolls and whatnot. That is a lot of the reason why the Fel population is in Fel right now, is because of the Power Scrolls and the people wanting them, So she's got a point there. But back to that, I mean, it would be nice for those of us who, our main characters or our big characters, the ones that we like to play a lot, are red and can't venture out, maybe to give that incentive, sort of like double resources, bump up the properties. But I think that brings us back to the same point, is if you're going to do that, the game sort of has to stay the same way it is right now instead of changing it into a proficiency system.
Right, that's a very good argument that you make, and I don't think anybody's really suggesting that we remove any of the incentives for Palooka. I just think we're just suggesting that we get rid of the item properties and keep the Power Scrolls and stuff like that. I think Power Scrolls was even there prior to pre-AOS, so I don't think that's even anywhere in the scope of being looked at as to possibly being removed from the game. So if the argument is for the sake of the Power Scrolls, I don't think anybody's quite thinking about removing those. I think really the best solution to this whole problem might be just, convert the high-end items into, the equivalent of your pre-AOS vanquishing sword or something like that. I think that would probably be the safest approach. And then, over time, those vanquishing weapons would probably break, and they'll, kind of work themselves out of circulation, and then give more of a demand to crafters, and then the Balerite and runic hammers can be used to make new vanquishing weapons and stuff like that, which would give a demand to a need for smiths again and stuff like that. So I think overall that would probably be some of the best solutions out there. But go ahead, Aya.
Yes, I do agree with you guys. However, I have an idea that should items and item properties go away, you're going to have a huge outcry. Maybe not, but I see things going one of two ways. The one that you guys are suggesting, getting rid of item properties. I see another side where item properties stay in the game, but you make more the items with properties much more easily available, so people have much more options to create suits, so that they aren't 60 million suits, that they're perhaps $1 million or $1 million gold piece suits. And that will allow more people to compete in the PvP world. And I see that's the hardest part right now, is because it's so item-based, you have to have a lot of gold in order to compete in the PvP world.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think under my little proposal to basically turn everything into the equivalent and give people the option of, or the ability to craft vanquishing weapons with runic Baylorite hammers and stuff like that, that would actually flood the market with these high-end weapons and make them more accessible, and thus driving down the price of these weapons that would be needed to level off the playing field, rather than giving an unfair advantage to one side just simply because they had more money. But, you know, that's something I've been thinking over in great detail, and because I've been, you know, discussing that over the last few talk shows and everything. But, you know, I think either way you go, whether you go with the pre-AOS option or you go with the proficiency system, I think a lot of people are going to be screaming period. And, you know, which one of the two is actually going to solve the problem and keep us from having this problem later on down the road? I think pre-AOS is probably the best option out of the two, you know, rather than keep going on this path to destruction, which is what I like to call it, because there's just no long-term viable solution, and it's going to catch up with them eventually at some point in time, is what my feelings are. But Spider-Bite's been waiting over here for a long time, so let me turn it back over to him.
Thanks, guys. Let me turn my little button off here. Yeah, no, in my opinion, you know what, it's a matter of trying to make everybody happy, and unfortunately, that is just never going to happen. It will never happen. You know what, in a perfect world, in my perfect world, we kill insurance. That was a bad mistake. We screwed up. EA just needs to turn around and go, whoops, we made a big mistake on that one. Kill insurance. Item properties will go up through the roof. GM armor will go up through the roof. Everything will go up through the roof. And I'm not saying that biased as a part-time Siege player. Even though it does, people buy GM armor through the roof and pay for leather and everything. Where on the production charts, who needs that stuff? I've got a suit that I paid $60 million for. I'll never lose it because I've got insurance on it. All I've got to do is pay my insurance every day. I've got to make enough to cover my insurance or my weapons or whatever. No, you're right. If we go to pre-AOS, that's what's the word I'm looking for? An extreme solution, in my opinion. I think there's an in-between. Unfortunately, EA has to listen to the people who scream the loudest. You know what? These people I spent $60 million on this. Well, great. You spent $60 million on it. Tough. I spent a lot of money on my Microsoft stock back in '84. Didn't help me now. You know, unfortunately, that's just not. That's not a viable excuse to me. How much money you spent? Because who knows if you spent $60 or $600 or $6,000 on eBay for it versus 60 gold, 6,000 gold, or 6 million gold in game. You know what? No, I don't buy any of that. So, Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Spider here, and I I think removing insurance as it is would do a lot. I also saw somebody gave out this idea on Stratix that we should get rid of powder of fortification and maybe also make repairs only go up to a certain point. And I think those are both very good ideas. As for what they're proposing with Publish 41 or even going back to AOS, you know, a lot of people are used to what UO is right now. I think if they just fixed the bugs that we had now, tried to keep things smooth, it would do a lot for what we have. If they try to do anything too extreme, they're going to make a lot of people angry. And I know personally I was one of those ones that cried, you know, if Pub 41 goes through, I'm leaving. Well, I'm willing to give it a try, but I think there's more things they could do to keep it simpler and to also keep away from those extreme changes. If they want to put in some of those extreme changes, I think they should put some of those efforts into a whole nother game like UOX like they had or Ultima Online 2.
I agree 100%. Yeah, I don't want to see resources diverted to creating a whole new game, for sure. Definitely not that. And unfortunately, I mean, you know what? The bottom line is the developers, the current developer staff, Draconi, everybody, all of them, you know what? They're trying to do what's best for everybody versus the prior developer staffs who were, you know what? They listened to the loudest voices. That's why we wound up where we are now. And unfortunately, we're doing backpedaling, and that's what needs to be done. And, well, you know what? I got a suspicion that Vice is going to speak it better than I can, and he's got his light on, so go ahead, Vice.
Yeah, you know, and that's a very good point. And I think you know, and here's my whole argument at the end of the day. You know, just about a month ago and everything. I mean, I don't know how long you guys have been playing. I do want to ask you guys that question later on here during the interview, how long each one of you been playing. But, you know, for someone like me who's been playing this game for 8 years, and I see an old player or an old buddy of mine that comes back from 1997, back in a system where we didn't have, you know, AOS, post-AOS, you know, where we didn't have, you know, item properties and everything. He comes back to a game nowadays, you know, comes back to a game today, and he sees a game that's just totally evolved into something that he doesn't even like. You know, so, I mean, not only are we making the game more complex, not only are we hurting the game by, you know, allowing things like item insurance. I don't know if I just dropped here, but hopefully, I think I did.
You're still good. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You're still good. Go ahead.
Okay, it looks like I just dropped the stream, so let me fix that real quick. And I don't know. Hopefully I can get some feedback from the people over here in the RC. Yep, it looks like we're still on the air.
You're still on.
Okay, well, anyways, just to go back to what I'm saying, you know, what we need to do is get rid of item insurance and everything, so we can go back to a system that's more understandable by new players, returning veterans from, you know, way back in the day and everything, who are looking to retry the game or get back into the game, rather than having to relearn the system. Because I guarantee you, if item properties or proficiencies comes in the game, you're going to have to relearn the whole game over anyhow. So, I mean, let's go with something that's more simplistic, that the new players, the returning veterans, and what's good for the future of the game. Yes, and at the end of the day, you might say, yeah, I spent 60 million gold on a item or good, powerful suit and everything and all this equipment. But I guarantee you, at the end of the day, you're not going to be the one that's going to get hurt. They're going to look at it from an aspect of what is most beneficial for the majority of the players, and not for these status quo, QO, or whatever you call them. I'm not sure exactly how you phrase it. But, you know, there's a group of people who are in the PvP aspect of the game. And the group of the people that are currently into PvP, they got millions and millions of gold, obviously, to buy all this equipment and also to fund all the insurance on it as well. So, to keep this system where the rich are ruling the PvP aspect, and then none of the poorer or less fortunate players can ever get into this aspect of the game, you're simply blocking them out of this aspect of the game. And to continue by saying, well, let's make compromises and let's keep this and keep this. Well, you're still going to have the problem where you're going to need 60 million gold in order to basically, have anywhere of a leg to stand on at the end of the day. So let's do something that is right for the future of the game. Otherwise, we're going to see, in my honest opinion, PvP go in a direction that we don't want to see it go, which is downhill, which is the way it's been going ever since Trammels come out. Do you want to continue with the trend and hope that, this little proficiency system addresses it, or do you want to see something that's actually effective that will actually get new life, new blood into the system in terms of the whole PvP realm? That's the question we ought to be asking ourselves at the end of the day, and I think we need to do a little bit of reverse engineering, is what I like to call it, instead of, or backtracking, whatever you want to call it. And that's what needs to be done here in UO.
Go ahead, Human, you're next.
I was just going to say, number one, I'm being told by people outside that apparently it's not being broadcast right now.
Yeah, we should be on live now. Again, I just lost my connection there for a minute, so we're back up and running.
Okay. And then also, Viceroy, I want to tap into a few points you just made. I've been playing in Fel now for a little over 3 years, maybe a little bit more. And in all honesty, you don't need to have a $60 million or $70 or whatever $1 million suit to PvP. You could do it a lot like me and my guild does. We've actually spent our guild funds on buying barb kits up and creating barb kit armor. And, if we've got a member who comes in and joins, we as a guild will work together to put them together a decent suit that they can PvP in until something better comes along. And we work really hard as a group to do that, and we've prided ourselves on doing that for a long time. There's a lot of members that got their first PvP suits as soon as they joined our guild, just, to make them, because for me and myself, and I'm sure and I hope the rest of my guild feels the same way, if we can do anything to help our guild members stay alive longer, then a lot of times we're going to stay alive longer out on the field, and it works both ways. So I'd much really, rather put forth an effort to give them a good suit that they can PvP in and help them stay alive in, because in the long run, the longer your people are alive on the field, the longer your guild as a whole is alive on the field.
See, that's a great point you make, but you also have to keep in mind not everybody's affiliated with the guild like your guild members are and everything. So, let's just say I'm not affiliated with any guilds and I come into Palooka and I don't have 60 million. I'm just screwed, unless I have somebody that's generous as you are to, help me out or something. And usually you're not going to get that kind of help unless you're affiliated with some sort of a guild or something like that. So, that's something else we got to keep in the back of our minds. But go ahead, Sean. Let's hear from you a little bit.
All right. First off, before I go, I received a few ICQs from people. Just thought I'd introduce myself. My name's Sean. My character name's Machine Gun Mimi. I'm one of the assistant GMs of this guild, excuse me. And in reply to what you guys said, I believe that, I've been playing UO for a grand total of 4 years, since Lord Blackthor's Revenge. Not very long, I know. Most people say I'm an item baby or a noob, But, when I first started trying to PvP, I would go to places like, maybe Buxton, Moonglow, Magencia, and then eventually I'd work my way up to, Brick Gate. And, no matter what I did, I would always get owned, I would get shut down. I remember my first kill ever was on an AFK Blue outside of Skara Brae. But I could never get anywhere until EFL took me in, and they hooked me up with the items I needed, and they taught me the skills, the tactics that I needed to know. And, you know, unless somebody's affiliated with one of those big guilds, or they're that rich and they have all those items, it is very hard to get into it. And, you know, they could do so many things so that it's not so reliant on items. I think they had a good thought trying to put in arms lore, but I don't think they need to nerf properties and remake a skill to bring them back up to where they are now. They need to let skills enhance what we have now. And somehow, I don't know how they would do it, they need to find a way so that you don't need to be, how do I say this, you don't have to be in one of these giant guilds just to compete in Felucca.
That's exactly where I stand, Sean. There shouldn't be a one way or the other. You know, numbers are going to make a huge difference on Felucca. Of course they are. I think it was Sonoma and Felucca, when Felucca first came up, where a guild of people who were completely naked took the U Crossroads, and they took it in an afternoon, and they took it within like an hour and a half. Now, anybody who remembers back to the Crossroad Wars on the various shards, those were usually 3 to 4 day long battles on any shard. A group of people who were completely naked did it because everybody else relied on looting what they were wearing. With them wearing nothing, they still took it. And that is what I want to see again. I want to see balance where it's talent. You know what? They run off, they heal, they come back, they fight, they heal, they cross-heal. It's teamwork. Granted, there were sheer numbers, but still, right now, I know people personally on at least Sonoma and Siege and Pacific who can take down 4 people by themselves because of the suit they wear. And in the same time, they can chat about the gal they were with the night before in real life, in TeamSpeak or Ventrilo or whatever. They're not even paying attention. They're auto-defending. And that has to change. I mean, it just has to change. Right now, I blow through 6 suits of armor a night on Siege. On Sonoma, when I go over to Felucca, I've got blessed and insured crap on me. I'm disgusted by it. I hate using insurance. I wish insurance would go away. I would prefer to, if I kill somebody, I want to be able to pick up their armor, put it in my stash to use at a later time. Because that's what's going to happen in a fantasy environment in UO. In that world that we live in, that we play. I should be able to take their armor and use it at another time. This stuff that, their armor disappears, and I've got myself a nice little recipe scroll as a result, is wrong. I'm sorry. And 600 gold for killing them for each item, that's great. But I go to Luna, and they want 6 million for the same piece of armor that those people were wearing. You know what? It just isn't realistic, and I'm sorry. I know. This isn't reality or whatever. It's not the real economy. No, it's wrong. Go ahead, Sean. Actually, Viceroy. I'm sorry, Viceroy, you were next.
Sure thing. Let me just identify some of the problems in which we had with AOS and everything, and maybe you guys can understand why a pre-AOS system worked a lot better than it does now. First of all, let me point out some of the things. Item identification. That used to be something we used to have prior to AOS. Now you don't even, item identification is totally nerfed. It's useless. Okay, before AOS and everything, we had no insurance. Now we have insurance, item insurance. What has item insurance done to the game that has hurt the game? Item insurance has created a system where items come into circulation and never leave circulation. Prior to AOS, you had item breakage. Post AOS, you don't have item breakage. Pre-AOS, you had arms lore. Post AOS, arms lore was nerfed and destroyed. It's hardly even being used anymore. Pre-AOS, you could steal stuff as a thief from other players. Post AOS, you cannot steal stuff from players. So, I mean, are you right there? Pre-AOS, and let me point out something else. Pre-AOS was a lot more feasible for any player to actually get into the PvP aspect of the game. Post-AOS, it's limited to a certain class of players that have the resources available to participate in this PvP aspect of the game. So all these little reasons as to why I think a pre-AOS system works so much better than what it does now. These are the reasons why I think a pre-AOS system works best than any of the other ideals in which it puts forward. Because I guarantee you, proficiencies are not going to address item identification. Proficiencies is not going to address item insurance. Proficiencies is not going to address arms lore. Proficiencies is not going to address stealing. And proficiencies is not going to address the high-end amount of money that you're going to need to acquire these items in order to PvP. So it's for these reasons that I think a pre-AOS system would work best. And Human, I think I'm going to get with you after the show to discuss about maybe doing a PvP-related talk show, because I think something like this really, we can go on and on about it, but, I want to try to get things back on track after we finish up, discussing this a little bit, so we can talk about your guild and not so much more about PvP. This is something I think we need to have a talk show more about in the future. I think something that's been lacking, so I'm going to be getting with you here after the show. But go ahead, Sean. I want to hear from you. Then we'll go to Human and then back to Spiderbite. Go ahead, Human. Sean.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Sean. You were first.
All right. I just wanted to say, Viceroy, you brought up a very good point in there. Many people, when they log into UO, they want to accomplish some sort of goal. Either they want to finish their house, or perhaps they want to attain more wealth, or maybe they want to finish their character, maybe even improve their suit. With insurance, we have armor pieces. Rather than leaving the system, we're just bringing more and more and more in. And when people have their skills trained and when they have their characters finished, what more do they have to do with that character? I think, they could make things a lot more exciting. They could bring about more change if they got rid of this, if they could bring back the item breakage and have things constantly changing. You're constantly having to readjust, but not on this grand scale of having to relearn the game.
Very good point, and I'm glad you see some of the points I made here, because, really, some of those things really need to be addressed, and I don't think any of the solutions that have been put on the table so far have addressed some of these long-term problems that have been in the game, and it's like, we're just forgotten about them all, and I'd like to see them addressed at some point in time. It's been asked over and over by players at UO Town Hall meetings, so question is, let's address them all at once, and I think we know how to do that, and so why not? But anyways, Human, go ahead.
I was going to say, you're bringing up a lot of good points, and I think that the best way for EA to go about seeing how that would work out right now would be, and I've heard a lot of people say this, bring up a pre-AOS shard, to where it's ran just like it was back in the day. and see how many people flood that shard, and see how that shard is ran for a brief period of time, and then base your judgments on what to do next after that.
That might be a very well viable solution, and hopefully, EA will take all these points into consideration. I'm sure they're out there somewhere. We'll probably end up listening to this interview, even if I have to stick it on their nose and say, hey, you might want to check this out. Got some interesting stuff, which I think you'll like to hear. So with that said, back over to Spider-Bite. Go ahead.
Thanks, Vice. Right? Yeah, no, everybody knows my own opinions on creating a whole new shard, a whole new pre-AOS shard. The bottom line is, I think you're right. I think people will flood to it. I think people will flood off of it just as quickly. And we'll be left with another orphaned shard, in which will cost more money to upkeep. We won't go on that rant, because this isn't a talk show. It's a guild interview. But that is where but it might be a good learning experience. You're right. You guys made a good point on that. And we have Siege for those who want to try stuff without insurance, or who claim that insurance is the answer, or the lack of insurance rather is not the answer. Yet they won't go there, but they'll go to an AOS shard immediately. That always humors me a lot. In any case, that's a whole nother discussion, for sure. I wanted to talk about factions for a minute, though. Is EA in factions at all? Have you guys even tried them? If so, what's your role in the factions right now? Any of you find the answer? Go ahead, Human.
That's a good question for you to bring out to us. A couple of months ago, I actually had a few members that were wanting to try factions out, and at the time we were going through some issues within our guild where, it wasn't feasible at the time to be pulling members to do something else. So I put a stop to it. I got with the members. I said, right now, we have to make sure our own guild is running on a how should I put this, is running smoothly, basically, before we start branching off and doing that. But, I've heard a lot of people, and I've known a lot of other guilds to put time into it, and for some reason, for a lot of them, I just don't think it lasts long.
No, I agree, and what a lot of guilds that I know, especially over on Siege, and there's a couple on Sonoma, I think, who, what they do is they create a sub-guild. They'll add a letter to the end of their name or whatever, even a lowercase f after it, so that it's a separate guild for those who want to participate in factions to give it a try. Have you guys considered that for those who want to get into factions? Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, we have considered that. That's what Human brought up just now. And when something like that comes into play, you have to make that decision. We can go ahead and create the sub-guild and have our members go into factions, but we have to decide if we're going to go that route or if we want to try to get our members to devote more of their time to what's going on with the main body of the guild. And I personally have tried factions, I'd say pretty recently, and what I've seen is they'll get in there, and usually we play on Sonoma. There's very small skirmishes every now and then, but I personally did not see more than that. Maybe you'll see one of these large guilds form a large group to make a sub-guild and to go in, and for a while they'll just control factions, and after that people get tired, people get bored, and it just dies out. For a guild like a solo guild, it might be something interesting for them to try, since considering that you can't receive heals from other people that aren't in your faction and whatnot. But it's one of those things that, especially on Sonoma, people just can't seem to get off the ground.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I know a number of guilds who have tried to bring it up around. Some that have failed miserably because they put their guilds into factions without creating a sub-guild, and that just, basically that puts a heel on the cigarette butt for the whole guild, because so many people quit being targets 24/7. Yeah, go ahead.
The biggest problem failed guilds have with factions is, in forming sub-guilds, is I play my character in multiple different places. In PvP, in champing, I may use the same character. A lot of people are like that. They have a favorite character, a main character. They don't have a, this is my faction character, this is my champ character, this is my PvP character. They tend to use the same character in different settings. So, depending on the situation. Factions, once you're in factions, no other player can heal you except for your guildmates and allied, the same faction people. Same with rezzing. So if you're on a faction character and you go to champ spawn with your main guild and you die, well, you have a long walk if you don't have another faction character with you, another faction person. You have to walk out of T2A and find a res and then come back, which puts a real damper on any PvP, because anytime you go champing, you got to be prepared for raids. And the same goes for fielding, and the same goes for EVs. They're going to attack you. So it's really a pain in the butt to be in factions and yet play with your main guild.
Yeah, exactly it does. I mean, it's a challenge. Basically, you're warring everybody else who opposes you. I was looking through the faction, who was in factions on Sonoma, as a matter of fact, and noticed that you're right. It's a bunch of solo players who have taken over the guild, or the faction stones, and in control it all, because none of the guilds want to defend or try to obtain them. Go ahead, Human.
Nothing. I was just laughing, and you said factions because it's hard because you're always against everybody, and I just found that funny myself because E is alone, and we are against everybody as it is.
You're right. I remember on when I first came over to Siege, I was still playing at Sonoma, but I was on Siege, and somebody ran in and sat down, and I was bartending at the time. That was my RP character. I had no skills, so I bartended, and somebody came in and just got mowed down, and they went, "Oh, jeez," and I went, "What's wrong?" They're like, as a ghost, they went, my guild went factions, and I haven't been alive more than 15 seconds today. And it does bite. So it makes you wonder. Anyways, okay. I was just curious. Hey, let me throw this question out to you guys. What would you change about factions to make you more interested in it? Anybody out there have an idea? I mean, if it's a because we need more conflict in UO. That is something that me and Viceroy really agree on. We need more conflict in UO, a reason to fight, other than red versus blue, because that's just wrong. There are a lot of good reds out there. I'm a good red on Siege, and I'm a nasty blue on Sonoma. What would you change for the chaos? Whatever. What would create more conflict for you? What would you change about factions to make it more appealing to you? Sean, go ahead.
I personally am one who would do something like that just for the hell of it, just for the fun. But a lot of people these days play UO, and one of the big things is they want to derive something out of whatever they do. And I think, I like factions right now, but I think perhaps people would want to see some sort of rewards more than being able to ride a faction horse or to get a faction robe. For getting a certain number of kills or a certain number of stone steals, something along those lines.
I hate the idea of rewards. No more rewards for the community. We need to get away from an item-based game. No more giving anything. It should be titles, maybe positions, and this will go into our next topic. We have 25 minutes, so I definitely want to get into the idea of player-run towns and town stones and how your guild feels about it. But I don't like the idea of rewards. The fact that they gave out stuff, period. I don't care if it's sashes, stuff that has nothing to do with PvP. We should not give anything out to the players for accomplishing something other than maybe a title. That would be a fine by me. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, actually thinking about that, that's a good point. I agree with that. I just think we need to have something that is some sort of positive reinforcement that would make people want to play factions more than what we have now.
Exactly, and a lot of the ideas that we've come up with over the last few weeks of talk shows have been the idea of bringing player-run towns and player-run stones, much like the old guild stones, except they're gumps or whatever you want to call it, and having that be a reward in factions, as well as integrate that library collection system, the zoo collection system, whatever system that is, into that stone, so that the players or the guilds, whatever, all contribute to this whole one stone, and we're using the word stone generically, to support the services that are provided, whether they be NPC services like a stable in the town or something like that, versus gimme at every single EM event, or, when I win factions I get a horse, not the individuality of it. Hey, as a community, we accomplished this. That might make factions boost a ton. Aya, you were next. Go ahead.
I keep changing my mind. Something that you suggested brought up an idea that I had, or sparked an idea. Wouldn't it be nice if a faction owned a town to truly own a town? I mean, the money you get off of reg vendors goes to your faction stone or whatever. Perhaps you can choose no guards for the city, or perhaps you do want a guard zone for that city. In other words, truly control the town. Another idea that you hit upon that I liked is instead of a title, maybe there's a score. I know there's points now, and I know you can go to UO.com and find out where you stand in kills. I kind of like this test shards version of that, where you just mouse over somebody and it shows you how many kills they have. That would be kind of neat.
That's a good idea, and something that should be worked into the faction system. If somebody's in factions, you mouse over them, you see how many faction kills they've had. Very good idea, and it links right into what I was talking about. Let's make this a notoriety thing. It takes us right back to the old days of natto killers who killed based on notoriety, not what the hell they had on them. Because right now it's like, oh my God, that guy forgot to bless his gypsy headset, and they swarm him 14 over on one just to get it, and then eBay it or put it on Stratix. Instead, it's more of a reason for conflict. There's a reason for conflict. Viceroy, go ahead. You were next.
Yeah, I think I like the ideal put forward by Aya, because I mean, simply if we can simply move away from the silver coins and everything, and what you get from let's say killing another player and everything, because right now the way it is in factions, I would imagine, is that whenever you slay another faction player, you not only get the insurance money, but you also get the silver coins to go along with it. So why not just simply do away with the silver coins and simply make it gold, and the gold that you get from the insurance you actually can sink into the faction stone, which you can actually purchase faction traps, faction guards, and other such things, faction horses with the gold, and this would also give faction, I'm not sure what they were, I'm not sure, I think it was the trade minister or something, the person that basically controlled the tax rates. I'm not even sure who did that. It's been a long time since I played factions. It was back 4 years ago or something like that when I last played. But, this would give an incentive for people in faction to actually adjust the tax rates. For example, yes, at a lower tax rate, you might sell more reagents and everything to, passerbyers and stuff like that outside of factions. But it would also, if your city was to raise more revenues from the sale of reagents at a lower price, you would have more funds coming in, or you could be, let's say, have your prices set up higher, and you could actually, encourage people to actually shop in your faction town or whatever. That would give people incentive to visit the different various controlled towns held by factions and stuff like that, and that would actually create, a competitive market where, each faction is trying to vie for your business and everything by setting different tax rates and stuff like that. So I think that would be a great idea, because then, that could also serve as a gold sink as well.
I agree. The way to go, and in my opinion, is to go and pay some attention to the player-run towns. We've talked about this so many times over the last year here on your radio, that the player-run towns, man, if you could give them some sort of foothold, that would be a great place to start. Go ahead. No, Aya, you had something to say. Are you sure you don't change your mind?
Sure, I'll go ahead. It'd be kind of nice to get the bounty system back. I don't know whether it'd be like within the factions, to keep it out of the mainstream. Bounty was fun. That was just fun.
I agree. I don't know how many of my heads are still sitting somewhere locked down on people's floors on Sonoma, but I'm sure there's many of them. I agree. I love the bounty system. I loved it. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I think the bounty system would definitely be a good thing to integrate these days. I also think another reason for allowing a faction or a guild in a faction, however you would do it, total control of the city, I personally believe that it would reinforce the community to a degree. I know a lot of times when I log on, I get the scoop on how things went today, how many spawns did we do, were there any big fights, anything interesting happened, but besides maybe going to these events that we have once a season or going to the YMCA every Friday, every other Friday, I really don't keep in touch with the community much, and I think a lot of other people are the same way. Bringing back this community would, I think, make you a lot more interesting for a lot more people. Playing into things like player-run towns, and I'm going out on a limb saying this here, but perhaps have for a character that's in a faction to maybe place some special sort of building Maybe make it so this building can't go private, and maybe it would be some sort of preset design so it's easily recognizable. Maybe put some kind of stone in the center and, tie into, like, control of some certain area or radius around that building. I'm really going out on a limb saying that. It's a brand new thought, but I think Imperial type of play would definitely be a cool thing to have.
Actually, what you're describing is exactly what me and Viceroy and a few others on the talk shows in the last few weeks, at least last 6 weeks, have been requesting. Town stones, not guild stones, town stones, or community stones, or whatever you want to call them, where people have to actually contribute to them to keep the resources up enough to keep the town or the township or the city or whatever you want to call it going. And it's a great idea, and we really hope EA is listening and listening to that, because to be honest, the player-run towns really need a lot of love right now. Granted, the guilds are going to jump on that 100%, but it really needs to be addressed. And it does need to be a stone system or a guild gump or whatever you want to call it, or even integrated into the collection system, which is my opinion. But it does need to be done. Viceroy, go ahead.
Yeah, I would actually like to, basically move the question over to another topic, because I feel like we're kind of straying off the things that we need to be asking these folks here with us today, because we've got about 14 minutes left, and so I kind of want to cut this off at the knees, so to speak, and ask some question for you guys. I want to know, how long have you guys each been playing Ultima Online and stuff like that? And also, do you guys have a website? I'll be asking that second question here in a few minutes, but let's start off with the question: how long have you guys been playing Ultima Online and everything? Each and every one of you guys. So if I can start with Aya, are you still here with me, and can you answer that question?
Sure. According to my paper doll, 86 months.
Wow. Okay, so you've been around for quite a long time and everything. Does that mean you was playing prior to Trammel as well?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and quickly, let me ask you this. What are your thoughts about the possibility of a pre-UR shard or a classic shard, in which Dark Scribe has been alluding to, maybe the possibility of?
I would love that. I think when they created Trammel, they broke up like the player-run towns, the communities, the protection of each other. A lot of that went away. A lot was lost when Trammel was created.
I have to agree with you. And so let me go ahead and go to the next person here, Human. Let me ask you how long you've been playing, and what are your thoughts on a pre-UR or a classic shard? And so I'll ask you the same question. Go ahead, Human.
Unfortunately, I didn't come in until after Trammel was created, so that was something I never got a chance to do, but I would love to see it. I've been playing for going on now 5 years.
All right, and let's see, Sean, how long have you been playing? I think you said something about after UOR, which is UO Renaissance. I think you came in after that, if I remember correctly. But let's go ahead and hear how long you've been playing and what are your thoughts about a pre-UR or a classic shard.
Yeah, I think I said earlier, I came in right in the middle of Lord Blackthorn's Revenge, just not long before AOS. So the majority of the time I've been playing, it's been, the AOS type of playstyle. But I think that the UOR shard, some of these people I've known that have been playing for 8-9 years. It just seems like such a great thing, and it's definitely something I would try out and hop right on.
Okay. Yeah, well, there you have it. LBR, which is after Trammel, if I'm not mistaken, right? But, alright, let's see. Last person, I don't know if she's still here with me. She's been kind of quiet over here in the corner. But let's go over here to Sapphire. How long have you been playing UO? And I would imagine you've been playing a little bit less than Hooman. I'm not sure which one of the two of you has started first, but I'm going to ask you the question. How long have you played, and what are your thoughts about a pre-yard classic shard?
I've been playing about 4.5 years. Hooman started about 6 months before I finally got involved in it. And as he said, we came in after a channel was invented, so we don't know much about it. But I think it would be a good thing. I know a lot of people say it was a lot better.
Yeah. Well, you know, I definitely hope you guys have the opportunity one day to play a pre-R or a classic shard, because I think, yeah, you might actually like something like that. Definitely was interesting times. It was more of a, I would say, more closer to realism than what we have now, because you was always looking over your shoulder, which is no different than what you guys do whenever you go raiding. But there was a lot more things that you fought over. For example, you camped certain areas, not just the champ spawn and stuff like that. So let's see. Next question I have here is: do you guys have a guild website? And how long has y'all's guild been around for? How long have y'all been together as a guild over here on Sonoma? So I'll take the question right to the man and ask Hooman, what's your guild website if you have any? And how long has your guild been around for?
Well, I'll have to look up for the guild site, because we do have one, but right off the top of my head, I do not know the exact address. I know it's listed under our charter on UO.com. And we've been a guild for going on probably about 8 to 9 months now.
Wow, that's quite a while and everything. And you guys have definitely grown by the looks of it, because I think you said you started out with 30 people. And now you're up to, can you give me a ballpark figure as to how many members y'all have in y'all's guild?
Anywhere from about 40 to 45 separate actual members.
And the rest are other characters and everything, right?
Correct. Everybody in here has their alt characters, some more than others. Me and the wife, I know that we've got 7 accounts between the two of us that we've got a lot of alts in the guild, and there's some others that do also. But altogether, yeah, about 40 to 45 members.
All right. And let me ask you this. Is your guild actively recruiting? And if so, what are your recruiting policies for bringing in new members? Do y'all have any certain policies as to what it takes to get into your guild? If anybody out there who is listening right now wants to join y'all's guild?
Actually, I would love to see them go to our website. We have email addresses set up and an application questionnaire there. And if they can't do that, then by all means approach any NE member in game. They'll get you in touch with the right people to talk to. You know, just like any other guild, we have our little standard questions that we'll ask and whatnot. And, you know, the first and foremost thing we want to do is make sure that everybody, if they don't already have a red character, that they're going to be making one once they join. So pretty much that's the only thing that I ask of them. Well, also they have to be able to run Easy UO and use UO Automap. Not Easy UO. I mean TeamSpeak, excuse me.
Excellent. So let me go ahead and give everybody the website address out there who are tuned in and thinking about joining your guild. The website address is http://evilempire.envisionplus.net. Let me spell out the Envision Plus. It's INVISION plus, you know, PLUS.net. And that's where you can go if you're thinking about going over to Evil Empire's website and wanting to join them. And you can, I'm looking over here at their forums. Basically, it takes you to a forum, and you can find out how to join Evil Empire over here, and how to contact them, and all that good stuff. So, with that said and everything, I'm going to quickly turn it over to Spiderbite so he can go ahead and start wrapping this up or get one more question. I think we got time for one more question if he has one. So, Spiderbite, go ahead.
Yeah, I had one more question for everybody in Evil Empire. The Pub 40 and the Pub 41, I know this could go on forever, but just your quick thoughts, because we only have like 5 minutes left. The Pub 40 and the Pub 41 changes that are proposed, let me emphasize that, proposed. We don't know what's going to happen until the published side comes through. We know what half of them are, with the rectacles and that sort of thing. But what is your guild doing right now? Are you guys reworking templates? Are you working strategies, etc.? What are you doing to prepare for these? It's going to make a big difference. You're going to have to change your armor. You're going to have to change your weapons in order to compete. So, Sean, you were first. Go ahead.
Well, in all honesty, after giving it some thought, I think I would give it a try, but I take this more lightly than most people. Keep that in mind. I have a suit like Human that is, let's put it this way, it's worth quite a lot of money and it gets a lot done, and if, as this is proposed now, they would nerf maybe 80% of my suit, 70% of my suit, and I would not like that very much, to be honest. The rest, Pub 40, I really don't have many problems with. I like a lot of what they're doing now. What they have proposed with Pub 41 and proficiency is the big thing I do not like so much.
I'm on the other side of the coin, where I'm digging the fact that these suits that are out there that are going to be nerfed are going to go away. You're going to have to actually pay attention to what you pick up out of your chest. So, yeah, you know what? I sympathize with you. At the same time, I'm like, oh, thank God. I can still give up my 6 suits of armor a night and know that the person I'm competing with is doing exactly the same thing. Human, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, I don't think we've done anything as a guild pretty much to get prepared for it. I think we're all pretty much hoping that it doesn't come out the way they're talking about it will. As far as characters, I mean, if I have to go out and create a new character just to be able to do something, that I'll do that, and I'm sure everybody else will also. But strategies are something that if you're a fail-based guild, you're always working on that as it is. So, I mean, that's something that we're constantly talking about in our team speak as it is, and that's nothing that's new.
I agree, 100%. All right, let's go down the line and have everybody say, their goodbyes. I appreciate you guys. Having you on today has been an honor, only because I've watched you guys over the years, and I've really enjoyed having you. So go ahead and say your goodbyes.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be on the show. Sorry I've been so tongue-tied. I'm normally a lot more fluent than I was today.
As a Stratus reporter, I can imagine that you are. Human, go ahead.
Oh, most definitely. I've enjoyed it. Had more fun today than I've had in a while, and it's nice to get in here and talk about such issues with other people, especially outside the guild. Most of the time we're just fighting and having a good time amongst ourselves. But, yeah, it was great. I enjoyed the show. I think more people in UO should pay attention to it and, hook other people up to it.
I agree 100%, yeah. If you're listening right now, bring your friends in, uoradio.com. That's all you have to point them to, because they can get into the chat, tune in, listen to our talk shows like today, and tomorrow we have our talk show where we usually bring in several special guests as well as the DJs, and sometimes we'll drag people out of the IRC chat, too, if they're in there. Sean, go ahead and introduce yourself or say hello or goodbye or whatever you'd like to do, buddy.
First off, I'd just like to apologize. I did come in late. I had work to do before I got on here, and it was actually pretty interesting receiving a phone call saying you need to be on UO Radio for this interview. But, you know, I tune into the station. I really do like it. I love the interviews, and I love the selection of music they have here. And I think it's something a lot more people really would benefit and would enjoy tuning into.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. By the way, I'm going to be playing my show right afterwards, filling in for somebody else. So you guys are welcome to tune into me. That is, yeah, self-plug. Sapphire, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you for having us, and yes, I am the quiet one. I'm the one that always listens and just pops in every once in a while. Thank you for having us, and don't forget to come visit my shop when you're in Sonoma.
Am I allowed to kill you there, or will I be banned?
You can try.
I suspect I would fail, since I'm like the worst PvPer in all of UO. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. As well as the guest today. You guys were great. One of the best interviews we've had in a very long time. And we hope to have you back for a follow-up interview in the future. Meanwhile, this is April 29th, 2006, with the Guild interview with the Evil Empire over on Sonoma. Everybody else, have a great afternoon. Tune in to me in about 2 seconds.